What's going on, my fellow A-Plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode of A-Plus Morphinominal, your weekly stop for your Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider news and reviews right here on our YouTube page. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for certainly joining us today. It is I, your more phenomenal host, Adam Perez. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, to go ahead and bring you our Power Rangers review for Beast Morphers Season 2, episode number 12, titled Finders Keepers. Now, for those of you who are wondering, no, this is not being broadcast live. I did go ahead and actually pre-record this episode. I wanted to have it ready for you guys on this lovely Saturday morning so that everybody can kick off their week right with some Power Ranger talk, ladies and gentlemen. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we took care of you today, even though we weren't going live this weekend. So we still have some goodies in store for you guys. So thank you very much for certainly joining me here on your Saturday morning or afternoon, depending on where you certainly are. And because of the fact that I am pre-recording today, I have a special treat, ladies and gentlemen. I have a co-host today. Some of you may, in fact, remember this very familiar face from either our YouTube channel, A+ Opinions, maybe from our current YouTube channel, A+ Hero Report, maybe even on this channel, who does our Kamen Rider reviews. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Stuart Branscombe. What's going on, Stuart?
Hey, not much. I am actually really excited to talk to you about this episode. When this episode originally aired, and they, of course, weren't airing it in America, I actually messaged you on Facebook. I'm just like, oh, dude, are you watching the new episodes by any chance? And you're like, no, I'm going to wait till they come to the US. And I'm like, oh, man, because for this whole time, man, I have had no one to talk to about these new episodes except for random people on Twitter here and there. But for the most part, it's been like I've been like just dying to like actually have a real like in-person conversation with someone about these like next three episodes, like this one and then the next two episodes specifically. So this is exciting for me.
Stuart, so you've been sitting on this
Yes.
for months, man. Well, first and foremost, Stuart, thank you so much for following the rules and the no spoilers, please, for Beast Morphers. I really appreciate that, man. But how many months has it been since it was on in the UK? It's been a while, huh?
Yeah. I want to say it was like March or April when it was airing. The only person I got like in person to like watch it with me was my girlfriend because she actually did really enjoy Power Rangers Dino Charge. So I was
Nice.
able to convince her to watch like these three episodes, but it wasn't the same because even though she liked Dino Charge, she's never seen like a single episode of Beast Morphers. So, there was like I had to like kind of pause the episode every 5 minutes and explain like certain aspects to her.
Well, hey, man, that's cool that you at least have a girlfriend that's willing to sit down and watch some Power Rangers with you, man. So that's definitely a keeper, Stuart.
Oh yeah.
I will say this. I honestly felt like I was the last person on the planet Earth to not have watched these episodes. So I do apologize, man, that you had to wait so long. But hey, today is the day, Stuart. Today is the day we get to go ahead, pop off the top, so you can go ahead and talk about this episode all you certainly want, man. We're definitely going to be going ahead and getting into it. So, Stuart, to be honest with you, man, I think you're like outside of my interviews that I've had, you're like my very first co-host on here. So thank you for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, dude, thank you for having me.
Definitely. And hey, guys, if you have not been checking out Stuart's reviews for Kamen Rider Saber, please go ahead and do so. They are up on our YouTube page as of right now. And of course, if you want to continue to get our reviews, some of our news updates, smash that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, along with that bell notification so that when we do drop brand new videos, you will certainly go ahead and be notified. The next step, Stuart, I got to get Indy on here, man. I got to get Indy on here.
Yeah, you know what? We should see if he wants to join for the big crossover with all three Dino teams.
Oh, maybe we should try and do that sometime next weekend. Well, we'll see because I believe the Dino crossover is next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what happens. But yes, we'll
It
certainly try and get him in here.
it depends. I swear I won't spoil anything,
Okay.
but technically, episode 22 takes place in between this episode and the Dino crossover, but it's a clip show episode, so I have no idea how they're going to air it. In the UK, they aired it in chronological order. I'm not sure if they're doing it in chronological order on Nickelodeon
Oh,
though.
they'll move things around. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. This has this season so far, or I should say, the second half of the season so far, has truly been feeling like a pure buildup to this crossover. It feels like it starts off pretty subtle with the Evox snare sort of thing, right? They mentioned the idea of Dr. K pops up, and then all of a sudden you get the introduction to the PR Vault. We get ourselves a nice introduction to Captain Chaku, who seemingly introduces us to a new villain in Ryjack, who just happens to have a spaceship full of PR, Power Ranger weapons and things like that, and his, that he's wind up stealing over, throughout the galaxy and things like that. So from the PR Vault to Ryjack's ship, the introduction to the putties and the Vivix and things like that, it's really been a fantastic build-up, I feel like, so far this second half of the season. And I'm thinking, where was the same type of energy the first half of the second season? But now that we are kind of wrapping up this show, I've been so pleased so far with just the gradual build-up to what is gonna be our Dino crossover. I almost feel like the Dino crossover isn't just one episode, because they've done such a good job of really putting the breadcrumbs to the end result sort of thing. So I've been really pleased with what I've seen so far.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say that that was one thing I enjoyed a little more about this next set of, I guess you could kind of call this one and then the next big crossover like a two-parter in a ways. Like they're both kind of standalone episodes, but they're both like they definitely this one definitely does help set up the next episode. And I think I would say because of that, I actually enjoyed this one a little bit more than the Ninja Steel like 25th anniversary episode, because the 25th one really just kind of felt like it came and went just as like kind of a, okay, we're doing this because we have to, not because we actually really want to that much. Like it was a cool episode, don't get me wrong, but it was definitely, there was no build up to it. There was nothing really exciting after it happened. It was just kind of there and then it was gone.
Yeah, I mean, for Ninja Steel, we did kind of maybe briefly get like the appearance of the mysterious figures, right?
Mm.
The three that came through the dimensional portal, but that was really about it. Whereas this, I mean, even from the return of the show from Evox Snare, you can certainly start seeing the pieces kind of being put into place to lead up to this Dino crossover, and I'm here for it. So in this week's episode, guys, it's the hunt for Ryjack's ship. We see the Power Rangers trying to get some of the relics that Ryjack has certainly stole. They give us a brief uh, recap clip, if you will, reminding us that Ryjack does have all those relics on his ship. And so everybody's trying to look for them, not only the Power Rangers, but also Evox as well. But our Power Rangers do come across it first. We do see that Zoey winds up finding the ship herself. But unfortunately, going against the orders of everybody else to kind of stick around and wait for them, she does decide to go ahead and go onto the ship, ultimately activating its self-destruct sequence, pretty much blowing up everything, unfortunately. I will say this in regards to Zoey. I was immediately pissed off at Zoey for even just disobeying the commander at the first place. I get the idea that you're right there, that you certainly want to be helpful, because I think even the commander said, hey, an intruder is approaching also. So I think that's really what rushed Zoey into not waiting and wanting to go ahead and find things out for herself. But in the midst of that, not only does she destroy the ship, but we also see that I believe it's Roxy along with Blaze, they wind up acquiring Snide from using the reanimator that we wind up seeing from the previous episodes. Again, the idea of planting breadcrumbs, right? Leaving behind the reanimator that we wind up having from Ryjack. I love the fact that they utilize that once again. And then once we do see that Zoey winds up waking up, she winds up using the compliance collar on Keeper of all people. Like I honestly thought, Stuart, that they just learned their lesson 2 episodes ago with Captain Chaku, like the idea of mistaken aliens and things like that, and just capturing them quickly, no questions, no answers, just boom, compliance collar. What did you think about Zoey here in the beginning of this episode? I felt like she just kept stepping in it, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, to be honest, like it didn't bother me with the self-destruct of the ship when she went into the ship when she wasn't supposed to, because that it was definitely a mistake on her end, but that really felt like a very human mistake. But yeah, I do agree. If it wasn't for the fact that we just had the Chaku episode like 2 episodes ago saying, hey, maybe don't jump to conclusions about like different aliens that you see, that it did really annoy me that her reaction right when she saw an alien that she didn't recognize was use use the compliance collar immediately, and not only that, but she's using a piece of tech that they don't even like fully understand how to use correctly, and they're just like using that right off the bat. If she wanted to like be cautious about it, maybe, having a blaster out and being like, hey, identify yourself or something like that, that would have been fine. But no, she just went balls to the ball and like, had the compliance collar out, just ready to go. Yeah. So no, I do think like that was the part where I'm like, okay, what's going on here, Zoey?
And I will say this, while I do know that clearly it's a Power Rangers show, so by the end of the episode, we're all going to sing Kumbaya and hug each other out and just be like, hey, it's okay. I do love the fact here, though, that people do give Zoe a hard time in here, right? Like, even Robbie's like, come on, it's freaking Keeper. How can you do that to Keeper? Like, don't you recognize this guy? Are you not paying attention in school, Zoe, from Power Ranger history? And then we even got the commander that's kind of honor also the idea that, hey, you didn't follow orders. Even Chase, who's an outsider, is like, yeah, you let Keeper get taken. Like, even Chase gets on her. But so I do love the fact that at least the team holds her accountable for her actions, but at least at the end of the day, they still manage to kind of stick together, giving each other encouragement. And they also really give Zoe the opportunity to really right her wrong and sort of prove herself. So I do love just the full circle that at least winds up coming for Zoe here this week, though.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that was like that was the thing that I actually did enjoy about the writing in the episode, is that the team was definitely on her because of that, understandably, but they didn't like hold her accountable to the point where like they're like, hey, you're off the mission now or anything like that. They knew that, yeah, she made a mistake, but she's still, a very skilled ranger. So of course they didn't like try to do like pull anything like that. So I
would have been
really
like,
appreciated that.
I would have been like, Betty, get in there. You're our new Yellow Ranger. Zoe, take a seat on the bench. Maybe that's why I'm not the commander, though.
Yeah. I feel like this episode would have ended in a very different way if that happened.
Most definitely. But yeah, I am glad that that they at least acknowledged the wrongdoing, but then also really stuck by her and helped everybody overcome and eventually get Keeper at the end. So it definitely worked out. But let's talk a little bit about Keeper. I can't say I wasn't expecting Keeper to certainly pop up in here. The fact that the title says Finders Keeper, I remember when we broke down on APlus Morphinominal, I remember breaking down some of the titles for the episodes, and I do recall a couple people making a suggestion in theory that maybe Keeper from Dino Charge was going to pop up in here. I certainly wasn't sure whatsoever, but he definitely does. And I think his introduction here is brilliant. Again, I'm just a sucker for connecting universes and dimensions, making it all just kind of connect at the end of the day. So I love seeing him. But the idea of Keeper there is that he came to retrieve the relics that Ryjack wind up stealing. And I really just love all the weapons that we wind up finding in here also. Like when we see our Rangers picking up stuff. I mean, we got the Lord Zed staff is in here. I believe we even see the Goldar sword. Is there any other particular things that jumped out at you when you saw just the stash of weapons Ryjack had?
I don't think I remember seeing any besides the ones that you just mentioned in this episode. But the next episode, there are some. I'm just going to tell you some really cool Easter eggs without like saying exactly what. You'll see what I mean when that comes. But yeah, there. Oh wait, no, never mind. Yeah, I almost said something, but that would have been in the next episode, so I had to be careful.
There have been so many Easter eggs this season so far, and I've honestly really been enjoying them, to be honest with you. But going back to Keeper, we do see that Keeper is actually kidnapped here. Devin says, go ahead and take him back to the base, puts him inside the trunk, and unfortunately, Vivix wind up getting the truck, and they wind up taking him away. Pretty much for the idea so that Evox can kind of get all the secrets that Keeper certainly has. And the fact that he now has this compliance collar on, I mean, he can't really stop himself from giving up all the information that Evox certainly knows. So I don't know what type of interrogation method they certainly did, but they literally sat around and listened to this whole entire story that Keeper wind up telling him. So who knows what secrets Evox certainly has. But I did even realize that at the end of the episode, while I'm sure everybody is satisfied that Keeper was rescued, there was a little tone in the commander's voice that she is still kind of upset that secrets from Keeper even got out in the first place, and that Evox certainly knows them. So I am going to be fascinated to see if that's going to come back to bite them in the butt or not. But I did pick that up from the commander at the end of this episode for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely understandable because whether or not Keeper knows anything about Grid Battle Force, like specifically, he definitely knows a thing or two about Power Rangers in general. Being the being in charge of the Dino Charge Rangers for so long, and clearly, like I don't know. It's been way too long since I've seen Dino Charge, so I don't know if it was ever explained
Yes.
if he made the Energems, but he definitely knew a lot about the Energems, though, regardless. So having that knowledge in the hands of Evox, you can only like imagine what kind of things that he might be planning with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and who knows? It may not even just be like Dino Charge secrets, right? Like, I mean, who knows what Keeper knows deep down inside? So I'm a little rattled, honestly, as to what Evos could possibly know. So I'm kind of fascinated to see how he unleashes or at least uses that knowledge on our Power Rangers going forward. Because I think he even mentioned the Scrozzle, the idea about making a new monster or a new Zord or whatever the case may be. But who certainly knows? We'll see what happens when I particularly get there. But one thing that really jumped out to me here in this episode, though, was the a lot of the action sequences. I thought the truck chase scene was actually handled pretty well. I can't recall that from a Go Buster episode that I've watched. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe it was even in the Dino Charge or one of the Go Busters movie that they wind up having, which I unfortunately didn't end up seeing. So I don't know exactly if that was like original footage or if they pulled that footage from anywhere. But the truck chase scene I thought was pretty cool. We even got the warehouse fight at the end. I thought was pretty neat, and we got our Dino Charge Rangers that wind up coming out in this episode that I honestly did not expect them at all. Like, even though I saw Keeper in the beginning of this episode and was seeing like Snide and Sledge and things like that, like I honestly was not expecting to see the Dino Charge Rangers to jump into this portal. Like, for me going into this episode, I'm thinking to myself, oh, the Dino Charge Rangers just pop up in the Dino Crossover, right? Like, that's just what it is when it comes to Power Rangers. We just try and put everything all into one episode. Why stretch it out, right? So the fact that Dino Charge pops up in here, amazing introduction, if you will, and they really led to some great action sequences this week. What did you think about their return and the action we saw?
Action was great. To answer what you were mentioning about the motorcycle chase, that did come from the Go Busters whatever the Dino Charge Sentai was called. It came from that crossover
Okay.
movie. It's funny. I actually watched that movie without. I still to this day haven't even seen a single episode of either Go Busters or the Dino Charge Sentai counterpart yet. I plan to watch them eventually.
Yeah, you got to, Stuart. You got to.
But that's where the motorcycle chase came from. The factory scene, man, that is where I was really like the most impressed with this episode, because it used a good mixture of both Sentai footage and New Zealand footage,
I agree.
but it was so well recreated, the whole set. Like, I legit, even after having seen it, I couldn't remember which parts of the episode were from the Sentai footage and which parts weren't. The only reason I even know that it wasn't all Sentai footage is because we get scenes with the actors like outside the suits, and then we also get shots of Sledge, who I don't think existed in the Sentai counterpart. But other than that, there was just such a great mixture of the two of them that it was legit really hard to tell when it was stock footage and when it wasn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, because I remember watching the scene when they're carrying the weapons into the warehouse because they decide, let's make a deal, right? So they if keeper for the weapons sort of thing. We see the team pulling the weapons into the warehouse, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I don't know if I recall them actually even being in the warehouse before, like, or this being one of the set pieces that they've utilized before. And so when I saw the warehouse, I immediately thought to myself, are we going to get one of those Super Sentai warehouse fight sequences? Because they always use the same warehouse, if I'm not mistaken, or at least it feels like it, honestly. And we did just that, and so I agree with you. I'm really impressed that they managed to find a set or a location of a warehouse that almost matches up pretty well, so that when they do start blending that original footage and Super Sentai footage, it looked really, really great. What did you think about the henshin sequences, the morphing of our two teams here?
Loved it. This is the first time I can think of since like Overdrive where we've actually had a full on morph sequence between both teams when it comes to a crossover. Because definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I can remember, all of the Nickelodeon seasons so far, whenever there's been like a crossover, they've usually never done like the full on sequence. It's usually just like a quick flash and then they're already morphed. So
Mm.
this is like the first time I can think of where we actually got the full on sequence, and not to mention, I loved that we got both of their theme songs, side by side. So we
Oh,
had,
man.
the Go Busters theme song as they were morphing, or sorry, Beast Morphers theme song as they were morphing. And then we had the Dino Charge theme song as they were morphing. And then they both said their, catchphrases right before, the battle actually started. Unleash the Beast, and then it's about to get wild side by side. I thought it was so great because it really gave me such a nostalgia feeling because it really felt like an old school like Disney or a Saban era crossover. It felt like something we haven't seen in the show in a long time.
The only thing that I felt, for me at least, that was missing, and I don't think that they do this very often, I do miss like individual roll call, like
Mm.
full sequences, like for both teams. Like I want to see all 10 of you guys up there, 11 or 12. I want to know individually who your names are, what color dinosaur you're representing, man. I want individual roll calls. But no, I that's just me because I'm greedy like that. I love how they do it in Super Sentai sometimes. So but for this, yeah, I was really pleased with the morphing sequence. I really had a blast with the action pieces. I thought they were just really well handled in here. And for me, it was kind of, honestly, it was a little bit nostalgia. I would agree, at least for me, just seeing Dino Charge. Like I know it wasn't that long ago. How long ago was it that we had Dino Charge? It's probably been a couple years, huh?
Yeah, it was like 2015 through 2016, so at least like 4 or 5
Like
years
4 or
ago.
5 years. So maybe not that far back, but at least for me, it was just really great to kinda see the team back again. I still do feel some type of way that they didn't manage to get Riley and, Shelby, on the show. It's just weird to me, like, "Oh, hey, don't forget, we also have 2 other members. Come on in, guys. Like, why weren't you there in the whole entire time?" I get it. I know why, but still, it kinda sucks that we couldn't get them. Do you miss them at all, or you pretty cool with how we got it?
Yeah, no, I also kind of wish we had like the actors there for at least a brief moment. Like even if they couldn't be on set at the same time, I feel like, and I'm only comparing this because like, we've had situations like this before in Power Rangers and they've always found really clever ways to work around it. So like the big example is Forever Red. You never had the actor who played Leo on set. Every scene with him was in front of a green screen, and
Mm.
they just pasted him in there. So I was like kind of thinking, would it have been that hard to get them? Because I think they're both like local in LA or something. Would it have been that hard to like, get them to go in front of a green screen just to do like a morph sequence or two and then just kind of like paste them into the scene? So yeah, I do agree. I do wish they both could have been there for that scene especially.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't get us wrong. I mean, we certainly are very thrilled and thankful that we got the actors that we do. But yeah,
Mhm.
it definitely would have been great if we had the opportunity to see the entire cast. But hey, it is what it is, man. Regardless, I really enjoyed the addition of the Dino Charge Rangers. It was so great to kind of see them back. I definitely felt like they just brought just a different type of energy, like an experienced veterans. You know what I'm saying? Coming
Mhm.
in and kind of not necessarily taking over, but definitely doing their part in welcoming the new set. So, like for me, this almost feels like a Dino Charge Beast Morphers team up episode to me, honestly, and then on top of that, the next following week we'll get ourselves Austin St. John and the Mighty Morphin, and it's just going to be it's going to be complete. So I really do feel like we're getting ourselves like two crossover events in one season, which has been great. I also want to talk about the idea of the let's make a deal here. The idea that Evox himself actually contacts the Rangers. They want to go ahead and get Keeper back, but in order to get Keeper, they have to make the deal to go ahead and hand over Ryjack's weapons. So when they do wind up getting to there, first off, the commander, super quick decision to just give it up. Like I'm like, is there no negotiating here, Commander? Like everybody else is like, even Robbie's like, Mom, that's kind of quick. She's like, no, we need Keeper. Don't let her negotiate anybody's plea deals in the future, please. But I will say this though, it almost feels like that they've never done something like this before. I mean, Stuart, you and I have watched a bunch of movies, right? If you ever have to make a deal and somebody says, I want this for this, right? Do you normally just hand it over to them and wait? Usually there's like a, hey, meet me in the middle, would do the
Mhm.
transaction at the same time. No, it's like, hey, here you go, Scrozzle, take these. And he winds up just leaving and they can't, then now they got to fight to get keeper. Just really not the best decision making here, if you ask me. I've watched enough movies to know what was certainly going to happen there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially like knowing the kind of people that Evox is,
Yeah.
with. The only thing I can kind of think of is, I guess technically, something like this did happen earlier in season one when they had Ben and Betty, and I guess in that situation they were true to their word. They did free Ben and Betty
Right.
after they traded, but still, you got to have contingency plans. You got to have backup plans. You have a full army essentially at Grid Battle Force, and they never seem to utilize them. So maybe actually bring in some ground troops, just in case things go south. Because I don't know, I feel like, if you're a commander, you should always be expecting the villains to stab you in the back and to go back on their deals.
Oh, most definitely. And I'm glad you wound up bringing that up with Ben and Betty because I do remember giving them hell in the first place. I was like, why are they even there? Like, why are they even the people that are out there trying to solve the problem, guys? Like, come on. Because I remember they did end up getting captured. That's absolutely right. But I will say this, the idea of Scrozzle now having these weapons, I believe they still have the reanimator, if I'm not mistaken. This is probably, if I have to maybe try and connect some of the pieces together, this is probably where some of the other villains probably come from. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if like Ebox winds up trying to create an army out of all these incredible weapons that he now has in his possession. Like, if Lord Zed pops up in this motherfucker, I'm gonna lose my ish, bro. Like, my head is gonna explode if he winds up popping up in here. So we'll see. But I'm really eager to see how Scrozzle is gonna use that reanimator because I think he's probably gonna utilize it on those weapons. But we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited for this. Like, since this season has been back, I've not seen a 1 week episode. Honestly, this is probably like my favorite or second favorite episode since its comeback. Evox Snare was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed that one also. But yeah, I'm loving the build up in here. I thought the Zoe's predicament was handled really well. The reintroduction here to the Dino Charge members was great, brought a great sense of nostalgia and really just some veteran hope in here. I always love just that passing of the torch, if you will, or just those team ups. I'm a sucker for that type of stuff. So yeah, overall, man, really solid episode. Really, really enjoyed it. I cannot wait for the Dino crossover. What did you think overall about this episode?
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, I really enjoyed it. Really gave me a lot of anticipation for the next upcoming Dino crossover. Really, if I had any kind of nitpick, it would really just go back to, and again, this is just because I'm comparing it to other seasons that have done something, very similar, but I think have done slightly better job. Like with Dino Thunder and with reinforcements from the future, like when Dino Thunder did the crossover with Ninja Storm, and reinforcements from the future did it with Time Force. Both of those seasons had like really awesome moments that weren't even really action focused. They were just, character focused, having characters just hanging out, talking with each other. I kind of miss that in this episode because I feel like it would have been really cool. Specifically, I feel like Devin and Tyler would have become best friends if we just had like one scene where it was just the two of them talking. I think something like that could have been really interesting if they did that. But I also do kind of get it. This wasn't a two-parter like those episodes I mentioned were. It was a one episode, so they got to like get the story going, especially because there's like a lot of, there was a lot of things that were kind of happening in with the villains that they really wanted to use to build up for the big crossover. So I kind of get why they couldn't fit in just like kind of a I guess a padding out scene, I guess you could call it. But at the same time, I feel like everything that we did get, it was a little more than I expected. So I definitely was not disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the speed of this episode, yeah, there definitely is a lot of action in here. It definitely felt very much fast paced. That there are moments, I definitely agree with you, where, like you said, just the subtleties of having a small conversation with Devin and Tyler probably really would have gone just a long way, right? Like those are just the little personal aspects of Ranger to Ranger kind of things that you might want to see between two teams. Really, certainly wasn't there because it did. There was just a lot of stuff for this episode to certainly get through, and a ton of action, to be quite honest with you, through this episode as well, to kind of cover it up. You know, for me at least, while this episode certainly was pretty fast paced, I have really liked just the pacing of the season so far. I mean, we have ended up at least getting some sentimental moments, you know, between Devin and the mayor, Captain Chaku stuff with his family. But I feel like the writers have also done a good job in keeping up that pace, still giving us great action, but still pushing that story forward. Like for me, I've always felt like I've watched these past seasons of Power Rangers, and a lot of these episodes, for the most part, are really just beginning and end, right? And move on to the next story, beginning and end. But I feel like the trajectory has changed for this second half. It's very much like, yeah, while we do have our own stories in here for each individual episode, there I feel like there's definitely an overarching story here. And it's one that's not like in the past, maybe they would focus on a one episode and then come back to it like 3 or 4 episodes later. This is just continuing to carry on episode by episode by episode, and that momentum I think is super important. That buildup is important, and I think it's honestly something that's been missing from Power Rangers. So this is super refreshing for me, Beast Morphers, because it almost feels like it's set up to lead you into the next episode. So like I said, even though Captain Chaku, when I look at it, was like a two-parter, I'm starting to now see this Dino crossover as maybe not just one episode, but really like a 3 or 5 parter. You know what I mean? Because of how well of a job they've done with the buildup so far.
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing I was kind of hoping for with this season when we saw that in the intro they were having like Vivix in the intro I think it was like you see Robbie like shooting one of them. That was where my thought kind of went to is wait a minute, even if they only have like Jason and the other Dino Charge Rangers like in for one episode, could maybe they be building it up for multiple episodes? And that's kind of what we got because the fact that we got the Vivix and Putties as early as I believe it was like episode 9 or 10, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We got them so early on. So it's like, oh man, they're already building this up. This isn't just going to be like kind of a one and done crossover episode.
Yeah, and so for me, I'll be really interested when I get into the Dino crossover episode itself. Like, if I'm gonna feel like it's rushed, or if I feel like they've done such a good job, because that's what my concern was. Like, that's why it surprised me when Dino Charge did pop up in here, because I'm so used to like I was like, you know what, I can see the Power Ranger episode. Let's throw in Austin St. John in one episode. Let's throw in Dino Charge in one episode. Let's throw in all these and not explain anything. But I feel like they've really been at least explaining and building things up so that that crossover episode is kind of like the payoff to
Mhm.
everything, and that's what I'm at least keeping my fingers and crossing my fingers for, to feel that way at least, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Um, what one last thing I'll also kind of say about like
Sure, yeah,
with the
whatever else you want to
wars
talk about.
going on, just in general with the with this season and all the Easter eggs they've had. When it came to like Megaforce and the way that they would do like in their second season in Super Megaforce, it felt a lot of times like the different Ranger outfits that they would use were there as kind of like a reference, as in like the people writing the episodes did like a Google search on who these characters were, but it didn't feel like it was actually with like 1 or 2 episodes to as exceptions. For the most part, it never felt like the writers actually knew what they had when they were writing Megaforce.
Mm.
It felt like they were doing quick Google searches. But with Beast Morphers, anytime you kind of like see a reference, just because of how specific they get into it, like as you saw with Dr. K and with the split emitters from Dino Charge,
Definitely.
it feels like for the first time in a while that we have like continuity that's written by people that actually know the lore of the show and that actually like have written in the show before.
Yeah, most definitely. They've probably taken a lot of their past writing and realizing like, hey, we can actually utilize all the stuff that we written before because now we kind of can make those connections. So you're right. Maybe they also like grew on the job. You know what I mean? Like maybe they were just like, we really got to learn all this Power Ranger lore and history. And so maybe the past few years, that's what they've been doing. Because you're absolutely right. Because even though it is definitely fan servicey for sure, the way that they
Mhm.
handle it as far as making it connected to the past and part of the history and how detailed they seemingly have been, just really goes a long way, and it's a lot of fun, honestly. And I think that's really has helped the Beast Morphers season for sure, and just heightening my anticipation for what's to come next. Because it's always cool to be able to have like those nostalgia factors, but to also utilize those as a overall part of your story and make them each individually important, I think really goes a long way. So I think that they've done a fantastic job so far with just utilizing the Power Ranger lore and weapons and items and making them fit into this season pretty seamlessly, honestly.
Yeah.
But other than that, Stuart, I think that's probably going to do it for us here today. Was there anything else off the top of your head from this episode you think we might have missed or anything like that?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I think so too, man. But hey, listen, guys. At the end of the day, what do we always say? These are not just our A+ opinions. We certainly want to go ahead and know yours. So please let us know your thoughts on this particular week's episode of Power Rangers Beast Morphers. Stuart, man, thank you so much for certainly joining me here today. We'll see if maybe we can try and do this again for the Dino crossover, for like the finale or whatever the case may be. But thank you so much, man. It was great having you and being able to talk with somebody else about Beast Morphers like this. So I really appreciate you coming through, man.
Awesome. And I really appreciate you letting me on the show because, yeah, like I said, just I love talking about Power Rangers and I don't get to do it much.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely look to have you back, Stuart. So thank you so much, man. And guys, definitely make sure you follow Stuart on his Common Rider Saber reviews. If you're certainly checking out this season, definitely go ahead and give him a view. And of course, Stuart, if people want to go ahead and try and reach out to you online, where can they go ahead and find you, sir?
You guys can find me on Twitter at TurboStew01. And then you guys can also check out my older YouTube channel, Turbo Studios.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Stuart, for your time today. And ladies and gentlemen, do us a big favor. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and do yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell as well. And if you want to go ahead and follow us on social media, you can certainly go ahead and do so right here at A+ Opinions. You can go ahead and check us out on our Facebook Hub page for A+ Opinions. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch for you gamers as well. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll certainly talk to you later. So do me a big favor, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, keep it A+, and may the power protect you. Talk to you guys later. Bye.